any politician telling me about my religion at all, because they're going to do a bad job of it. And then all of a sudden,
All
before you
right,
know it,
hello.
hey, what up,
Hello.
Betty?
Okay, perfect. Things are working. I think the audio's coming through. So yeah, I guess so. Hi again for the third time. Just to save time, I'm preacher or preacher of your God. Welcome to my show, The Gospel Truth, and after some audio issues due to my smooth brain syndrome, we're back. I'm joined by two guests. They're both wonderful people, and they spent the last 20 minutes bonding while I was figuring things out. But check their stuff out. I'll link it later. But I don't know. This is just very awkward. It's a great start for my first show for the year. But yeah. So anyway, again, the main topic for tonight is just like review culture and how it's affected media overall, plus some other miscellaneous housekeeping things because it's been a heck of a month. I can say that 2021's gotten off to an interesting start, but enough about me rambling. So we started off this conversation saying it's just like if games, we're sticking to games for now. If games are just allowed to be good enough, and I guess we can just have a redo of that conversation if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, let's let me back it up, and let's start with kind of the way I want to make sure that it gets framed correctly, because I think when you talk about review culture, cultures are products of history and origins, and so we have to look at a lot of what's going on with reviews to understand it. And I know we went over this a little bit, but I just want to go over it again to really get it cemented down, that there are a lot of things that are unfair to reviewers, that make reviewers, that coerce reviewers into giving not necessarily like false reviews, but they're saying, hey, you're not allowed to review this negative part of the game or this part of the game that we didn't do a very good job with.
Oh
And there's
yeah,
sometimes and there's sometimes it makes sense. It's like a plot twist and you don't want somebody to spoil your plot twist. Okay, that makes sense. But then there's sometimes with it where you can tell, well, this isn't a plot twist. This is just really not well done.
yeah.
Um,
No, honestly, I failed to even consider like the business aspect of things. Is like a lot of review outlets have to be all buddy buddy with developers. Otherwise, they'll lose those sponsorships, they'll lose that money. We can't have that because that's all it comes down to at the end of the day.
Right. And to be clear, I don't believe, I believe that reviewers don't get bribed. I think most of them are as honest as they possibly can. I think there are times where we saw last year a couple of major scandals with reviewers, not from the reviewers, but from the developers with their reviewers, and how they manipulated their data or said, hey, you can't review this, or,
Embargoes.
right, embargoes and that type of thing. And it's really, and it is one of those that they can say, it's always there to say, if you rate our game poorly, we don't have to give you an early copy of our next game.
Or
So
pay
it
you.
right, or well, and that has to do between you and your bit, and they can always cut you loose, right? But it's something that I don't think is ever directly phrased out, like give us a good review or else you're fired, but it is something that's always hanging over your head.
Yeah, it's
And
not like people legitimately tell you that, but it's like that's the case. Like it's
Exactly.
heavily suggested.
yeah, I do want to turn over, because we are the rookies and we have an expert on. And I do want to get to the expert, but just to finish my brief segment here as far as setting this up, I think that there's times. So there was a couple moments that I wasn't allowed to review. My first review was on The Last of Us Part Two.
I'm sorry
Lucky
again.
me. It's okay. I understand why it creates such vitriolic reaction. In some ways, it's good for people to have those reactions. I personally did not enjoy the game, but there were things to me that could not review I couldn't review beforehand because I didn't feel honest about it. And I'm going to give two specific examples. One is Ellie stabs a girl who's playing a PS Vita with a PS Vita. We weren't allowed to review that part of the game. Stabs her in the neck. It gives this like Tarantino like blood fountain coming out. It's very comical, although it's supposed to be dark and broody or whatever. But it is very ultimately it ends up being very comical. And then to wipe the knife off, she stabs herself in the pants like 4 times, and like
Wait,
the
what?
knife is clearly going through her leg. Right? It's
What?
supposed to be a wiping motion, but it's a stab at myself in the leg motion. Plus, no blood actually gets on her pants. Right? So it's
That's a
like
straight up bug.
right. All right. Well, and it's not. It's just here's the thing: is they did when I talk about these types of things with The Last of Us Part Two, especially, they did a really good job on other parts of the game that you were allowed to review. But then you get to a part like this where they're like, "Yeah, we didn't really work on that. You know what? Instead of having you be an honest reviewer, we're just going to say that that's part of the embargo and you can't talk about it." The second one, and this one kind of made this was more famous. This made the rounds, but I noticed it immediately. Was when Abby walks in, sees a friend dead, starts throwing up, and then you get an overhead shot, and there's no throw up in front of her. Like she's barfing on the ground. It's just the ground in the overhead shot. And of course, you're not allowed to review that either. And I'm like, but you had this was supposed to be the game, right? People are talking about like, oh, the graphics were awesome and the audio was awesome, and I know the narrative kind of sucked, but like at least those graphics. And I'm like, man, but the graphics were only good in the parts I was allowed to review. In this part, like they're super disappointing. And I'm not saying I don't demand to see throw up all over the place, but yeah, when it had so little going for it anyway. Those are just my examples from my like limited time as a reviewer, and I think that's part of what has created the culture we have today. Before we get into that, but I am going to turn it over to the most huggable hipster on the planet, so she can talk about her kind of experience as a reviewer.
So it's funny that you mentioned like kind of the do's and don'ts of what you were allowed to review and what you weren't, because it's like, since I don't work explicitly for a company and I work for myself, I say what I want, and that ends up biting me in the ass a lot of the time. Because like I said before about Fallout 3, it was one of the most heavily hated reviews I have ever done. And then some of the people who have come to me saying, wow, I never really thought of it like this, or I never thought that was in that game before, or I never saw it from this perspective, were really shocked to find out all of the crappy stuff that was in that game. There are other times of where like I heavily debated within myself on should I talk about whatchamacallit, the forced transition of gender that a child went through in a video game in Remothered Tormented Fathers. I
Wait,
ended up
what?
discussing. Yeah, so there's a game called Remothered Tormented Fathers. Absolutely brilliant game. There's a lot of stuff that I absolutely loved about it, but one of the main characters was originally a female, and because the father wanted a daughter, he put the girl through several treatments of what the drug was
You
called.
mean he wanted a son?
Oh, he
I
wanted a
take
son.
it.
Sorry about that. To mix up my words. He wanted a son, so he gave his daughter several treatments of what was a medication in the game called phenoxyl and hypnosis treatments.
Wow,
So
that's kind of screwed up.
yeah, exactly. So I discussed it within the article, and I thought, okay, psychology. Let's try to go about this in a delicate way. But I feel like that would be one of the things that a developer would be like, hey, let's not talk about this, or let's not bring this up, because it is a very touchy subject, because this happens in real life. It's not just something that happens in a game.
Yeah, and then I can already see the gamers trademark getting upset about it because, no politics allowed in games, even though most of the games you probably play are political in nature.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
includes Call of Duty, because war in itself is political. And I'm surprised so many people think otherwise, but I digress. But yeah, it's just like when it comes to reviews, it's just like I feel like honesty should be policy, but it's like we live in a world where just like, the truth is so prone to being twisted, and reviews are no different, because it's just like I just feel like we've gotten softer because, review publishers do have to maintain those good relationships. They have to stay on the public's good sides because, you got to get those views, you got to get those clicks, where it's just like I feel like back in the day, and I can't speak too badly about it because I'm not that old, just like people were like less afraid to tear into games because like, well, I guess addressing the elephant in the room, we can go for a really recent example with Cyberpunk, of all things. Like, Cyberpunk's release was a straight up disaster. Like, I can't
Sadly,
think of many other games that have just been hyped to, well, there, I don't think there is another game that's been hyped up to high heaven that much as Cyberpunk, and just it comes out and it's just like everything that went wrong could have gone wrong. There's like some like Daikatana levels of things going poorly. And if you don't know the story of Daikatana, I highly suggest checking that out. It's a very fascinating tale of flying too close to the sun. But even despite all that, even the CDPR coming out and saying it's like, we screwed up, we'll be fixing this, and it's just like people still forgive them. It's like, oh, they made Witcher 3, and it's just like it's just fine. It's like
That's
if you
the thing,
and you
though.
still have review outlets. I'm looking at it right now. IGN 9 out of 10, 85% on Metacritic, and then there's this one others called Tom's Guide that gave it a 2 out of 5. And it's like, you've heard of IGN, you've heard of Metacritic. I don't know who this Tom guy is. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, though.
That's the interesting part, though, because people love The Witcher 3. I'm going through The Witcher 3 for my first time right now, and it's absolutely amazing.
It
They
is.
are, yeah, they are expecting the same quality from The Witcher that they thought that was going to be delivered for Cyberpunk 2077, and it had to be way better than that. It had to be pales to comparison about that, because the main thing that we're understanding here is that you can't sell a game on hype and Keanu Reeves, okay?
Even though people would very much want to. And even looking deeper into Metacritic, the user score is a 7.2, despite having literal game-breaking bugs in it. Also, there's also that thing with the there's also that thing with the seizure and not putting a proper warning for that, but I feel like that's a different issue.
I just want to be clear, though, I have not played the entire game yet due to conflicting game reviewing issues, so I have yet to play that until like next month.
Yeah, it's like most people can't even play Cyberpunk because it doesn't run on anything except like the most high-end PC, and even then, it's a gamble. I don't know if they fixed that for now, but I haven't heard much about it.
They had one patch that fixed a patch that broke.
Oh, well, there's one fix. And then the thing about it is that they didn't even optimize it for the current generation of consoles. They did it strictly for the next gen and didn't tell anyone. That's kind of important information, especially for the consumers.
Exactly.
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 is one of those. There's a lot of lessons to be learned with it, and you just hope that they learn those lessons. And it's hard because I think I don't want to be too harsh, because I think there's a lot of developers that put their heart and soul into the game and did their best.
Absolutely.
And it's rarely it's hard to say, like, because I don't know exactly where the fault lies for all of it. A lot of it's marketing decisions. A lot of it is management, right? Especially when things aren't coming together. Because there's one thing. I mean, Night City is incredible, right? Like, just, yeah. I mean, the culture that you get, the fact that there's like unique graffiti all about the place, the fact there's like a desert area with these, unique solar panels, and like they did something that's monumental, possibly something that gamers can say, I've never seen a city like this before.
Yeah, right? It looks great when it functions.
Right. And so then the problem is you had people do that as a base. And so I think it's hard because we as I think as a people, I don't even see as reviewers, we are so prone to give something between 1 and 10. And then we feel like, all right, well, I'll give it a 2 or a 3 because I don't want to be too harsh, or I'll give it a 9 or an 8. But nobody feels good giving like a 5. Right? Whereas like Cyberpunk 2077 it probably comes in about your solid 5. There's some things that are like amazing. You've never seen a city like Night City before. And then at the same time, you've probably never seen this many bugs in a single hour before.
Yeah, it's just so like it really just amazes me, and that kind of made me want to do this topic even more. It's just like you have a game that has the most absolutely abysmal launched in like recent memory, I'd say, and it's still getting praised because it's like, yeah, it's like when the game works, it's cool, but it's like the game didn't work for a lot of people, so it's just like, where do you draw that line?
Yeah, I mean, they did the traditional No Man's Sky. They overpromised, they underdelivered, and that's
but even
No Man's Sky became good.
Yeah, this is like a couple years later.
Right. I mean, and this is not. I mean, and I don't want to dump on The Witcher 3 because The Witcher 3 is actually in a really good place. But for people that had The Witcher 3 like pre-ordered, played it on day one, In fact, if you'll read, Jason Schreier's got some great pieces about this. During the first couple years when they were supposed to be working on Cyberpunk 2077, they were actually working on fixing bugs with The Witcher 3
Yeah, exactly.
and smoothing that out. So The Witcher 3, if you man, remember how bad that combat system was? Did anybody play that when it first came out?
I
Like, we're
can't
talking
say I
like,
have.
dude, the hottest garbage when it first came out. It's okay now. Like the combat is nothing where you're gonna like write to your friends about, but it certainly doesn't take away from the experience, which is saying a lot for a game that's like 180 plus hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, like even
and I do love The Witcher 3. Like I want to stress that I love The Witcher 3. I don't want this to come off as like that bad, but it did not debut great. It had bugs, it had problems. And so we're kind of seeing something similar, and it's like, well, did you forget who these people were? Like, they've done this before, you know. This isn't a first timer.
yeah, but Witcher 3 is a good game, so clearly everything else they touch will be amazing. I mean, just ask BioWare. Casually looks at Anthem.
I have a hard time talking about BioWare. Dragon Age Origins is like one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, it's like as much. I don't play a lot of BioWare games, but it's sad because, you know, signing a contract with EA is about the same as signing a death warrant, and it's only a matter of time.
You could say the same about Blizzard as well right now, the way they're going.
I mean, it hits. I know it's a kind of a tangent, but it hits so much harder for Blizzard because I used to play a lot of their games. Like, I still own a couple of their games in disc form. Like, I have the original discs of both Warcraft 3 and Brood War, and it's just like I used to play WoW. WoW used to be my addiction. It's just seeing them fall from grace is just, it's hard, and it's like I can't fully blame them for it because they didn't have a choice in the matter with the merger, but it's just like, just seeing them make so many mistakes, it hurts. And now I've gone from playing their games consistently to not supporting them at all out of principle.
Yeah, I mean, they were dead wrong on the Hong Kong protests and the way they handled that, and it was
that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, that was wrong. But then you look at stuff like Warcraft 3 Reforged, which turned into Warcraft 3 Refunded. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I think that's just like the worst way you could ever bring a game back into public eye. And then now recently they just freaking hired in Vicarious Visions to only work on Blizzard stuff. You know, the same company who did the Insane trilogy and remastered Tony Hawk, which, by the way, outsold the Avengers game. The Tony Hawk Pro Skater remakes outsold Avengers, made by Square Enix. Yeah. Yes!
You know what actually I find hilarious about that? I applied to work at Vicarious Visions.
Oh my god.
Before
and now
they got bought out from Blizzard.
They already worked for Activision, but they just walked up to them and say, hey, you're only working on Blizzard things going forward. Because, you know, they totally deserve that, which they don't.
No.
Yeah, I feel for him. Like, I think as a reviewer, and I don't even necessarily want to get too negative, because I think part of being a reviewer can be like a great thing. Like, you can hype up things. It's like, hey, you might not have noticed this, but really check this out. You know, I think when we think about a gaming experience, we think about us and a game, which is really only two parties, when in reality it's you and 1,000 different people at the company. Or if you're playing a game like a super giant game, you're talking about like 20 different people, but really you're seeing like all their work.
You have influence, and that's a conversation I kind of want to get into later into the night regarding a certain giant Fortnite streamer, but anyway, to stay on topic, but yeah, I don't know, it's just like I kind of want to switch topics as there is something a bit uglier I want to discuss. So it's like, I feel like you can't talk about game reviewers without mentioning, you know, this whole skill debate. And it's like, you know how game reviewers are bad, and it's like, I get it, haha, funny, it's mean, but then it's like you look at some game reviewers play games and it's just like they are actually kind of bad, or they don't finish the game all the way through. It's like, I still remember that guy who got stuck on the tutorial level of Cuphead. The tutorial that haunts my thoughts. I still think about that randomly. It's like, dang, how can you not get past the tutorial? And it's just like, does that really come into a factor in this discussion? Like, I don't know what to say, because I feel like anything I say would just be mean-spirited. Also, I can kind of relate to it aside from Cuphead. I saw someone play Doom Eternal. It's just like, it just seemed like he had such a basic lack of the fundamental mechanics, and then he wants to say that the game is garbage. It's like, I don't know.
It's not. Yeah, you know what? Let me start with this one too before I turn it over to the hipster again. I want to answer because I didn't fully answer your last question either, and I think these two are related. Which is it okay to have like an 8 out of 10 game, or to like a 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10 game? Yeah, it's totally fine. I think there are games. I talk about it like this. Sometimes you're in the mood for those little taquitos on the 7-Eleven stand that have been going around for a while. You know, you're not in the mood for something high end. You understand what makes something high end. You understand what makes a 10 out of 10 game, but you're just in the mood for something lighter, something easier, something that caters to you.
Dude,
I
you're
don't like
hitting
the number
you're hitting the
16.
nail right on the head, because just like I hate to interject, but it's just like I have a
Yeah.
whole shelf of games behind me, and it's like, despite all the games I have on that shelf, which is 2 full rows, by the way, I'd say like I could count the number of games I would consider 9s or 10s on one hand. Of course, I have my 10 out of 10 at the top of my shelf, because I have a statue of Banjo Kazooie holding my copy of Banjo Kazooie, which is my all-time favorite game. But even then, it's like most of the games on my shelf I label like 7s or 8s. Heck, I have a couple 6s on that shelf. I have some games on that shelf that are less than 5, but I
There's
own
some
them.
there's some like simple games where you just say like, you know what, this is just what I need right now. For me, like
Exactly.
MLB the Show on my PlayStation. It's just when I feel like knocking some dingers off of somebody, I turn the difficulty all the way down, and I just, after a rough day, I feel like I've hit 5 home runs in a game, and everybody's chanting my name, and I pitch a perfect game, and you just want to feel good. And like, do I understand that that's not a 10 out of 10 game? Absolutely, I understand what they could do to make it better, but this is what I'm interested in right now. Like this is good for
Exactly.
me, and that's good. So like, I mean, so to finish part two, because that's talking about the 1 out of 10 discussion. To finish the question that you just asked, regarding sorry,
Skill.
sorry, skill, right? So like, the thing is that's why you say I think this is where integrity comes into the arena, because we talked about it a little bit by saying like, hey, if I review this game, if I review The Last of Us Part 2 before it comes out, my review will count towards the Metacritic score. My review will count, my publisher will like me, all this other stuff. But if I can't honestly do it, I need to say, like, I'm sorry. Like, you're asking me to rate the graphics during this limited segment where they actually tried, and not rate the graphics on the part where they didn't. I don't feel comfortable doing that, so I'm going to wait until the game comes out. There were many reviewers that did that, and as a result, they got huge viewership followings afterwards. It's kind of like this natural market correction by just being like, hey, these guys, we feel lied to by these guys. Now I
Yeah,
understand
it's
we don't
just,
want too much backlash against them. They were in bad situation, right?
I mean,
But
yeah, like you still gotta get bread on the table. Like I get
yeah,
that.
and they are, and in fairness, if they say, I mean, really, it's like a rat running a maze and me complaining about the maze. They can still say I got the cheese, and be like, you did everything you were supposed to do. You rated the graphics based on what you were allowed to view. You rated the plot based on what you were allowed to do. But I still find that, like, overall, what they're going to do with your work is dishonest. It's not your dishonesty, it's theirs, but I still would prefer that my work weren't used that way. So the skill, as far as the skill cap thing goes, that's the reason you kind of say like, hey, this is meant for somebody else. Hollow Knight is a great one where reviewers got knocked off by like the first couple of guys, and the first couple of guys are hard. And I think it's worth mentioning in your review by saying like, it's hard. And not only is it hard, it's hard to the point you might regret ever buying the game. That goes for games like Doom Eternal as well.
Or Cuphead,
Cuphead
because
for
like
sure.
Cuphead's a great game, but I tell people straight up, it will challenge you. And then
Yeah.
even back when the Insane trilogy first came out, it's like there were reviewers who were reviewing the game that didn't even make it past the first game. It's like, you realize that's only 1 out of 3, right? So it's just like, if you're only judging the game based off that, then you're missing out, because then Crash 2 and Crash 3 make vast improvements to where the first game just kind of fails. And even then, in the remade version of the first game, it's such a smoother ride. Like, yeah, it'll challenge you, But like I was saying when I was playing Crash 2 the other day, in the original Crash 1, if you wanted to get the extra stuff, you had to not only make it through the level, break all the boxes, but also not die, and some of those levels will test you. Sunset Vista still haunts my nightmares, like I swear.
And so it's just a matter of saying, like, am I the right person for this review? I think at some point you need to set it aside and be like, hey, this Dark Souls, I can't get past the first boss. I'm going to go ahead and pass this along to somebody else. I think it's still fair for that reviewer to be like, hey, this first boss, they didn't really give you the tools that you needed or the hints that you needed, and it kind of isn't fun to die against something like 800 times before being like, oh, that's the weakness. But you do need to at least be able to progress in the game, I think. Anyhow, I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
much all I had to say about those two questions. I just want to make sure, because you asked them and I kind of dodged them both, but there at least you go, answers to those questions.
Yeah, I
But
mean, believe me, I want both of your answers, so I guess we can turn it over to Ariel here.
So
If
with difficulty level, it's so funny that this is brought up because this is like something you guys are like talking about everything that I've been working on for years. So it's like, okay, we're in my forte right now. Like when it comes to difficulty level, I put it down specifically to easy so I can enjoy the story and do the review more efficiently instead of worrying if I'm going to be dying 24/7.
But then what
Because
what if they still can't make it past easy or there are no difficulty settings?
then it's not the game for them. I'm sorry, but it's just like if you can't pass even a tutorial level, I get good, bruh. I don't know. Like it comes down to
Oh.
the simple thing of like if you can't perform I'm gonna sound so bad for saying this, but if you cannot perform a simple task when you are doing a video game that is meant for either like youngish teens to adults or people of any age, then I don't know what to say. Like that's
Yeah,
just
I guess it's sort of just like, working a normie job, I guess. It's like you're not able to do the tasks that are required of you, so it's just like I kind of feel that's the same way with reviewing a game. Is like if you can't beat the game or at the very least get halfway, then it's like on what grounds can you
game.
review something because you've barely seen anything.
Yeah, it's like just shut the nope, just don't do it. Don't
Or
just
it's just like when I was talking about Crash, it's like, okay, you made it through Crash 1, but this is a trilogy. You still have two more games to go through, and they
yeah.
are vastly different.
This is what I tell people who have only played one Resident Evil game because just for people who don't know, I am an avid Resident Evil fan.
She
I that was
really is.
yeah, I played the first game I ever played was Resident Evil 1 remake when I was 10 years old that was gifted to me by my dad. So he turned me into what I am now. So whenever I talk about Resident Evil and someone tells me, "Oh, what did you think of 7?" And I said, "Oh, this and this and that," and talk about it with them. And then they're like, "Yeah, that's the first game I ever played, but I don't know if I'll play the other ones." I was like,
And it's just
"What?
like you're
What?
missing out,
Why
bro.
not?" Yeah, exactly. And I told them, I was like, they redefined the horror genre, right? And they were like, yeah, but is it like anything like Resident Evil 7? I was like, they didn't have the capabilities back in the 90s to do first person, so no, it's not.
But I guess that just comes down to people's preference, because like if that's what you're exposed to, then that's all that you know. It's just like I guess
But what's
going back to Banjo for me is like I know people who like nuts and bolts, and it's like nuts and bolts hurts my soul, but I can't call it a bad game. It's painfully average, but I can't say it's bad because like when I play it, there are aspects of it I enjoy, but it's just like I will easily tell people any day of the week to please expose yourself to Kazooie and Tooie. Like they're vastly different games, vastly superior games to
yeah, and while
subjectively speaking, I guess, but still.
and while I agree with that wholeheartedly, when the same person then comes around and tells me it's the best Resident Evil game in the entire like
Franchise,
Resident Evil
but then you've only played the one, so it's like, how
exactly.
do you know that?
Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I say. I was like, "Oh, try playing Zero. You're going to get a better feel for the franchise. It's a prologue, and you get a better feel for how the story flows better." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And they sound like it's homework. It's like I'm not asking you to like write down the Schrodinger equation. Like, what?
Another franchise I feel that has that problem, Final Fantasy, because like I'm not an RPG person by any means, but it's just like, everyone has their Final Fantasies, and then people always ask, it's like, well, if I want to get into Final Fantasy, where do I start? It's like the wonderful thing about it is that you can start anywhere, because none of the games are linked unless it's a direct sequel. It's like Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2, those stories have nothing to do with each other. And then going on, so on and so forth.
It's hard. I think one of the things for the reviewer, and this is again one of the things that the reasons I don't like giving a number is because if I review, let's say take Dragon Age 2, and I say, let's look at it as a video game. Well, as a video game, it's probably an 8 out of 10. As a Dragon Age fan, if you played the heck out of Origins, you're probably looking at like a 4 out of a 10, 3 out of a 10 type of experience. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm like, what do I do? Do I just average those together and give it like a 6 or something? It depends on who I'm writing for. As a writer, one of the things is knowing the audience that you're writing for. And so as a reviewer, it's like, well, am I writing to my fans, or am I just writing to people who are just generally looking into the game? Well, the truth is you're writing to all of them. And so you kind of got to take all those and be like, hey, if you're one of the things that I love when reviewers do is say, hey, if you're a fan of this, this, and this, then you're going to love this game. If you're not a fan of this, this, and this, you're going to hate this game. And I think that gives people an accurate kind of view of it. Final Fantasy, I think they create a new world every time. And so people are always going to have their favorites because you're going to say, man, I was just so attached to this world. Final Fantasy X, I'll be honest, I was just, so many of the Final Fantasies, I was just confused. I actually love the remakes because I'm a little bit older now, as well as I think they're filling in a few more blanks that might have been more apparent to some people, but weren't apparent to me. So when they do these remakes of these, kind of PlayStation games that the plots were just convoluted to all get out, I'm kind of like, oh, that's why this part was important and intense. Okay.
Yeah, 7 remake got ugly because then you had the purists like, this isn't an exact 1-to-1 copy of Final Fantasy 7, therefore it's bad. But it's just like, maybe they're trying to make the game that they wanted to make back in the PlayStation era. Just like the technology's there now. That's the only difference.
They do have, man, I gotta be honest, I don't really like their decision with Bridgefall to kind of undo the sheer volume of tragedy that was. They kind of undid a lot of that. And I think, that Bridgefall is such a huge, as far as just gamer history goes, that's such like a harrowing moment, that when you kind of undo the tragedy of that, it's like, oh, well, all right. But as far as a game, I certainly follow it a lot better than the original Final Fantasy VII.
That's good.
Yeah, I actually am invested in the plot in this one. Whereas last time I was like, I don't know, I'm a whiny brat. I'm confused. I apparently have some mental disorder. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I have a mental disorder.
Yeah,
like,
no,
that's important.
Final Fantasy VII's lore gets crazy. Like, I get people are invested of it, but then it's like you have the original Final Fantasy VII, you have Dirge of Cerberus, you have Crisis Core, you have Advent Children before Crisis. Just it's a lot. It's a lot, and I'm not even a fan of the series like that. But I guess stepping away from that, because we've kind of been focused on like the reviewer side of that, but it's like I kind of wanted to shift it over to like, how the public kind of comes across with the reviews. And it's like the number system in itself. It's like, do you think the number system's like a necessary evil? Like, how that just people have just come to expect numbers at the end of reviews, so it's just like you can't really go like into all like the gray areas, we'll call them. It's just like, how do you feel like the public's perception to review affects it? Because like, people write reviews for the public, and it's just like I feel like their reactions to things can change how the game is played, so to speak.
I feel like people's emotions get involved too much with a lot of it. Like,
oh well, I guess that's a given.
Yeah, if you do like a really good review, no matter what, people are going to have something negative to say. Like there comes a point in time of where like any reviewer, I don't care if you're reviewing old school games, I don't care if you're reviewing RPGs or platformers, whatever it is, if you review something and you give it your most unbiased opinion and do it to the best of your ability and you're being as PC as ever, someone will still have a reason to hate it.
Yeah.
And that just the personal opinion that where it comes in is like you'll get people who give you really good feedback, but then you'll get people who are just like they either have their
You'll get
bias
the gamer's trademark.
exactly, yeah, exactly.
Just like whenever I say the gamer's trademark, by the way, it's like I feel like y'all know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's just like, those those dude bros who get upset at the slightest bit of representation or politics, or just like, as they put it, SJW bullcrap.
Yeah.
Y'all know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think that there's certainly people that are going to get angry kind of no matter what you write. I do think that there is something, and this is part of, I think, being a writer and being a reviewer is something that you need to understand is saying, hey, like, I'm not just here to tell the truth and, tell you unpleasant truths and suck it up, buttercup. And, it might be funny, I guess, if you think you're like owning people, if you're like the angry reviewer that just reviews everything and you're angry all the time about everything.
Hey, I mean, it works for the nerd.
Right, you can find a niche for that, right? But yeah, you stick to reviewing games that make you angry that are bad games, and then that's your thing. I think part of it. So a great example for me is like Mass Effect Andromeda, um,
Oh
which
boy.
was a bad game. I mean, just objectively not good. But I can't just. I think the problem is a lot of reviewers went into that being like, it sucks. Mass Effect fans suck. You all thought you loved this franchise. BioWare sucks. And it's like, well, you're making a lot of people angry here. And it's like, oh, you can't handle the truth. It's like, well, no, you're very disparaging about it. And I think there's something to be like, hey, look, I am a Mass Effect fan. I love these games. I am completely with you. I've got all the achievements on both of them. I think there's like a way to relate to them, to break bad news to somebody. Because ultimately, I do think we are in the process of breaking bad news. Because even if we're not doing it for the consumers, we're doing it for the developers, the people who make these games, that say like what worked for you and what didn't work for you. It's not enough for me to just be like, your plot sucks. Let me tell you what I did not enjoy about the plot. Let me tell you why it was a negative experience for me. And I can give it, I think it's okay to give like like in conclusion, this game sucked bad. But I think as long as you have the building blocks in there in place to say like, hey, listen, here's why the plot didn't resonate with me. Here's why, here is why your universe felt a little too empty. And maybe some things that would have changed it. Things that I loved about the old Mass Effect games. What happened to all that culture? What happened to all, we needed to see some of this in order for us to kind of enjoy your next step here. And I think that for me, at least from my limited experience, it does make people say like, okay, I understand this guy is coming at it the way I would come at it. I really want to like this game, or I'm a developer. I really worked hard on this game, and said, hey, look, it didn't work out, but let me tell you why. It's not because of, I'm not making this personal. I'm not saying you suck. I'm just saying here are some of the issues that went into it that you're going to miss. I'm a fan. I love the series, and here's why Mass Effect Andromeda was not good.
Yeah, among a myriad of reasons. But then again, I guess you do bring up a good point that it's just like, you can just, your word is just like your word, and then it's up to like everyone else to either accept it or learn off of it. And just like, I don't know, a lot of devs really don't seem to learn off of them, but that's something different entirely. But yeah, it's just,
There is some, like, I think there are some that learn. Many more keep an ear to the ground that you think. I think so. Here, do yourself a service here. If you're on social media, pay less attention to what Square Enix says and look at the developers and follow them on Twitter and pay attention to
Yeah,
what those people say. Because Square
exactly.
Enix is, all companies are just fronts of people. They're just collectivized people. And you're going to get some watered down, self hyped, whatever when you see them. You look at CD Projekt Red for Cyberpunk 2077, look at their developers, and look how hard they fought against their own company to try and deliver a good game. And look at how angry they were when the company lied and said the game was done not January
yeah.
2020.
I
And
could
look how
say the
mad they
same
were.
thing for Blizzard too. How all
Yeah,
their employees started speaking out,
right.
especially when a lot of them got fired despite them making record-breaking profits.
Right. And so the problem is you have a lot of people that are used to viewing and listening to Blizzard. and they're like, "Oh, Blizzard is great because I follow Blizzard." And I mean, I was one of those guys too. I play their trivia
But yeah,
games
because
on social media.
they make it like that. They don't want you to focus on the
Of course
developers
not.
or the people behind the scenes. They just want you to focus on the brand, because the brand is what sells.
And the brand is just a certain number of people. One of the issues that I have with people are wondering what's the big disconnect with Naughty Dog, right? What happened that made The Last of Us Part 1 like everybody's game of the year, and I guess technically Last of Us Part 2 is game of the year,
By
but it was much more
technicality.
right. But people were much more upset about this one, and there's much more division. What happened? Like the storytelling completely broke down. What happened? Well, here's the thing. Naughty Dog is not an entity. Naughty Dog is a collection of people. When you lose 70% of the people while you're making your game, it's safe to say that what you know is Naughty Dog, and you make 70% of them leave, then you've lost 70% of your identity. The people are the identity. So when you lose those people and big surprise, they put out what they put out, you just kind of say like, oh, okay. So it was never about Naughty Dog. It was about those developers. It's about those people. It's about the graphic designers and lighting specialists and something. I think one of the most rewarding things I've done, I really love the lighting in Ghost of Tsushima, right? And I was able to say like, man, I really like the lighting in this game. The graphics are all good, but the lighting in this is just on the next level. And I followed the person who was in charge of it on social media and just got so much like great insight that I wouldn't have had even if I just followed Ghost of Tsushima, because of course they hype up their game, but they're not going to get
who
in
made
detail.
Ghost? Sucker Punch, was it?
Sucker Punch, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember Sucker Punch for Sly Cooper because I didn't play Ghost. It's not my thing. Also infamous.
Yeah,
but,
everybody's got their thing, but at least and you're not writing reviews for Cuphead after losing 100 times, right?
like I said, I'm the odd man out because it's like I don't. You two have written reviews before. I'm not that good. I couldn't. I'm not to say I can't do it, but just like I don't have a way with words like you or Hipster has, because like she's an excellent writer. It's like I've read a couple of her pieces, just like the way she puts words on paper is just like I can't do that. I'm just a blunt character, like short, sweet, to the point. Like with games that I do enjoy, like I enjoy Cuphead, I enjoy Banjo. It's like platformers of all kinds. I could go on for hours about that, but for games where it's just like they don't resonate as hard, I don't have that much else to say. Heck, I could probably say more about games that I find abysmal than I could with games that are just like, well, good enough. Because it's just like, it's a solid experience, but it's just like, there's nothing like stand out to really talk about. At least for me. Because like, I guess two different ends of the spectrum. It's like, I could go on for hours about Banjo the same way I could go on for hours about Perfect Dark Zero and why it sucks. By the way, Perfect Dark Zero sucks. Don't play it. or grab a friend, because there is co-op in it. You'll at least suffer with someone.
See, you're more of a reviewer than you thought. No, yeah. I mean, ultimately, your gaming experience. One of the things that I love about the video game industry, you say maybe I don't have a way with words like that. One of the things that attracted me and made me make this kind of midlife change in careers, because I was in restaurant management and doing a political podcast, and I just decided I wanted to be done with all that. I feel like, why? And I'm like, it's the way it all comes together. I think that it's music, it's art, it's interactivity, it's all these things that I love, and it's all of them coming together. And I think that you can say, I think that one of the coolest things about the video game industry is you say, I'm not great with words. There's a place for you. There's you can do something. You can be a content creator. You can be a level designer. You can grab a hold of some settings, and if you're coding, you can make a map. I mean, you do not have to be great at everything to have a place in the video game community, and it's really cool. To address the second part there, as far as like an average game, I think the thing is people we have a plethora of riches in video gaming. There is more spent on video games than there are in music, movies, and TV shows combined, I think. Something like that. So
really?
If you think about, I believe don't you know what? Don't quote me on this until I look it up, but it's some ridiculous thing like that. Like
Noted.
more people are playing video games than listening to music. And it's something that there's still kind of a bit of like it's still kind of weird to talk about. Like people aren't comfortable being like, I am a gamer yet. But more people are doing that than watching movies. That and it's something that I think we need to think about. That we say this is the biggest industry in entertainment.
Yeah,
Well,
the whole Panera happening outside isn't helping anyway either. But
right, and so it that makes it big as well. But I mean, I guess it's one of the few industries that I guess you could say arguably triumphed during this time. But at least we got some great games, some great experiences. And I think the thing is part of the difficulty with that is gamers are now able to be picky. We have
so picky.
Think about how picky you are with your music. Most people are like, I don't listen to country, I don't listen to rap, I don't listen to metal, something like that. Well, now when you make it about video games, let's use this analogy as music analogies. Let's say all RPGs are classic rock. Okay, and people are making a lot of classic rock. Well, the industry is now so big that you can't possibly listen to all the classic rock that there is out there. So you have to identify the bits of classic rock that are worth listening to, And so when you got these RPGs, we just say we have so many RPGs to play from. You could play every RPG this year and you wouldn't ever finish playing RPGs. So
I don't think you'd ever finish playing any genre.
Right, any genre at all. And so that's part of the problem is I need to say when I'm reviewing a game, I need to be like, man, I want to make sure that if somebody reads my review and buys this game, that it was worth their time. And if they don't buy this game, that they didn't miss out on something special. I think that those are the two things that kind of keep me awake when I'm doing my final review is saying, would I scare somebody away who would really enjoy this game? Or would I make somebody buy this game and it's not the best use of their time? Because time
is what
we only have
matters
so
the
much
most.
of it. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you do bring up a good point. What do you think about it, hipster?
I honestly I don't even know because it's like I'm trying to wrap my head around it to an extent. I don't have the right words to it, and I know it's shocking, right? A reviewer does not have the right words to explain something right now.
There's no shame in that.
Speaking is so different than writing.
Words are hard.
It is. I can't tell you guys how on the daily autocorrect attacks my words every single day. So I don't have an immediate thought on it right now. I have to think more on it to give you an answer, to be honest.
Oh, that's fine. It's just we here on this show aren't exactly, professionals. The first attempt at doing this should show you that we kind of fly up at the seat of our pants, and when we do need to find something out, Google is your friend. Learn it, live it, love it, because they know everything about you and your ancestors and your children that you don't have yet, or might have. Who knows? But getting back on topic, wow, I this is a perfect example. I had something and I lost it. I had one or two more things we could discuss as far as this topic. I don't know, give me a minute. It'll come back. I'm sure it'll come back.
You want us to riff for you for a minute?
Sure, why not? Freestyle.
Yeah.
He's here to say he's got some topics for us today.
Oh God. Okay, stop freestyling. Stop freestyling, please. But I don't know, we'll get back to it. I guess we've kind of had a lengthy conversation about reviews and all that. We did kind of strictly stick to games, but that's basically all of our levels of specialty. One of my other co-hosts who usually joins us, they are a film buff. They'd have a lot to say about the movie industry, but they were busy tonight, so couldn't make it.
But that ties into what I'm saying about gaming in general. Is it's a harder review than just a movie, because whereas you'd view actors, I'm now reviewing the way the people design their eyes, the way they design noses, teeth, hair.
Yeah, there's
everything.
A lot more to it.
There's so much more in every piece of it that it's it becomes very difficult to write a short review and write one honestly, because it just feels like I'm not being nuanced and I'm steamrolling something that needs to be discussed in greater detail. I mean, Hitman 3 is my most recent review. Loved the game. Had some problems. The tie kind of clips through the suit jacket pretty regularly in that iconic tie. I'm like, man, how could this still happen? But at the same time, you're looking at these levels that they've designed. I mean, the vineyard that they designed at Hitman 3 is, I mean, it's as picturesque. It's like a postcard, and yet somehow, because with a postcard, you think like, oh, they airbrushed it. But there's all those little things. There's like a little sprinklers in between all of the grapevines and like litter from people that have been on a tour. And you're just like, man, this is so incredible.
It feels lived in.
Yeah, it definitely feels lived in. It's definitely, most of the places you go to are pretty swanky. But, well, I guess that's not even true. Because there's that revolution going on during the one. But
oh, yes. Spoilers, I guess, maybe? I haven't touched Hitman, so...
I haven't played the game yet.
No, you know what? I definitely won't get into... I won't touch any spoilers. The Revolution level is not... It's just a level. It's not an event that happens in the game. That you would have to know about. But yeah, like, there is... but it is something that makes me say, like, if I were to only fanboy out about the good stuff, that people would be like, he's just glossing it over. You know, he's not trying to be as honest as he can about it. And I would hate that, because I do want people that see my work to be able to be like, oh, yeah, I get it. You know what? He warned me about this bad thing. Okay, I see the bad thing. You know what? He's right. It isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
Opposed to, it becomes a big deal as soon as you gloss over it. You know, like, if for me, if I said, you know, because there are a lot of things that I went into that I was like, none of this came close to affecting how I feel about the game. But I do need to say it. Otherwise, you're going to be like, how did he ignore all this bad stuff?
Yeah, so I guess, like, I know we kind of touched on the whole, like, honesty thing earlier, but then it's like, you saying that kind of makes me think it's like, there could be a point where you're, like, too honest, where it's like, you know, how, you know, you could get into spoiler territory and stuff, or just point out, like, every little thing about the game, because, like, when does it become spoiler territory? When does it become that he's just fanboying or fangirling? When does it become that they're just nitpicking, etc., etc.?
I feel like that's the job of the reviewer, though. You have to be able to say everything that is on your mind about the topic. Now, if you have an NDA by a company or something that you can't talk about specific things, that's something else entirely. But if you're talking about, like, for example, the most recent review I did that's going to be out next Wednesday is Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, the game was so long. Like, it didn't take away how much I enjoyed the game, but it was my first experience with Assassin's Creed, so I had to be honest in saying, like, listen, you are in for over 100 hours of gameplay with this thing, and then won't even cut it to, like, the halfway point. So you have to be really crucially honest with a lot of people, and I've just learned over the years, in all honesty, not to care what people think. Because if I say that one thing that might help someone in the long run with their purchasing decision of the game, or if they're going through the game and they encounter the bug that I mentioned, or the little thing of, like, the glitch that I talk about, or whatever it may be, then they'll know. And that's all that's important to me.
Well,
that's awesome. Yeah, it's great to keep that in mind.
That's a good moral ground to stand on, I'd say. But yeah, it's like very fruitful conversation. I love it. I hope everyone in attendance is loving it too.
I mean, I almost feel like a passenger on this ride. It's awesome. The ability to say, like, hey, you know, that as a reviewer you are going to, it's only saving somebody a few bucks. Some people are going to buy it because they need to see the disaster regardless. Some people have it pre-ordered, 3 years ahead of time.
Or they're just that loyal because, you know, like I said, Perfect Dark Zero is bad, but I own the game regardless. I have 2 copies of Nuts and Bolts because just, you know, rare stuff. I can't help myself.
You have an addiction, get help. But there's, and that's okay. I still think there's a place for the reviewer, like, for people who've already made even purchasing decisions, like, and with what Ariel was mentioning, with, like, if there's a bug, you know, or there's a glitch or something, to be like, okay, I was expected this. I was braced for this. Preacher, you were talking about how you don't like spoil the game, even though like, because I want to be honest, but at the same time I don't want to spoil the game. And there's absolutely certain things that you can say in your review. We always talk about spoilers in terms of plots, but
Yeah.
there's moments in a game where it's like you look over a vista and you take it all in and you're just like, dang. And if I mention that in my review, it's probably going to take away from that moment a bit because there's that anticipation, for it, that it's not a surprise like it is in the game. And so it's
Yeah.
like, man, I could review this, I could say it, but I'm going to leave this out because it's going to help. It's going to make the experience more enjoyable to you. So that's another factor that we kind of haven't talked about yet. Is would if somebody read my review and then play the game, would that make the game more or less enjoyable for them? If it shaded them one way or another. Because my job isn't to try to make you a fan. My job is trying to point fans to the games that most appeal to them. It's definitely not to create like swabs of haters either.
Yeah.
It's to be like, hey, if you would hate this game, like let me just help you dodge it. Or if you would love this game, let me help you love it even more. You might not have noticed this, but check this out.
Yeah.
And I think there are things like Hitman 3 that a lot of people aren't playing it with headphones, and the audio is probably the best I've ever heard in like a game. So I actually just finished playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and you will probably recognize this, that the audio is something I did not enjoy because it doesn't recognize right, left, front, back. And so it plays the sound and you can't tell what direction it came from. It actually points arrows to it if you enable that option to like
Yes, exactly.
where the fire crackling came from. And that I did not appreciate.
Oh, that would make me angry because I go off of sound cues for like everything.
Yeah, and yet in Hitman 3, it was such a big upgrade. And I'm not trying to dump all over Valhalla. It was just something that I noticed, especially playing them back to back. That when I was playing Hitman 3, all of a sudden I'm just like, oh my gosh, I hear somebody behind me. And not only do I hear them behind me, I can tell how far they are behind me. And only can I tell how far behind me, I know whether to look over my right or my left shoulder because I can hear the direction on my right or left ear. And there's like clinking of diner silverware. If it's behind a wall, it'll be muffled a little bit, and you're just like, oh man, sound is out of this world on this game. And I think it's something that if I didn't mention this audio, somebody wouldn't appreciate the audio unless they had it pointed out to them, and they're just like, oh yeah, this is part of the immersion. Like this is something that's like that awesome, that's really getting to me. And I think that it is a job of a reviewer to kind of point out things like that, to be like, hey, like let's say you're serving a meal at a restaurant, and I promise this is the last analogy I'll do in this little segment, but if you're serving like a mac and cheese and be like, man, did you taste the ground mustard in there? And somebody takes another bite and they're like, oh my gosh, now I taste the ground mustard, and now I appreciate the mac and cheese even more than I did before, right?
That actually is a good point.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that that's something that a reviewer can do as well, to be like, hey, did you notice this, or did you pay attention to this? Now, obviously, the power that's used for good can also be used for bad. Like, hey, did you taste the anchovy in your mac and cheese? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't care for that. And so it's like, well, you should know that it's there either way. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just like
One of those things where I love like different reviewers. See, this is why we have so many different types of reviewers, because I didn't know, like I noticed the sound stuff in Valhalla, but it wasn't significant enough for me to put it in the review. And that I love the difference in reviews for that.
yeah, it's like everyone looks for different things or gets different takeaways out of things. When that's what kind of makes the whole experience come together.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely a place for all of them. It would be impossible to cover every part of the game that I need to cover. And it's funny that I'll write a review, I'll submit it, and then 2 hours later I'll be playing, I'll be like, no, how did I include this? What? Oh no, why didn't I say this? I should have said something.
That feels like it'd be a terrible feeling.
It is, yeah, it is, because then I'll go back and I'll see like another mission. I'm like, oh no, but why didn't? Oh, I forgot to do that. Crap. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I'm forgetful by nature, so it's just like if I forgot it, then it's just it's gone. But
Yeah, forgetting your car keys is one thing. Forgetting something that goes live for like a lot of people to see, that they call you out on that shit.
Yeah, sometimes I forget to post when I go live, and I'll have been live for like an hour. It's like, oh, yeah, I
Oh,
probably should have told people, but but anyway, I think it's just like, yeah, honestly, we had some pretty fruitful conversation around the topic. It's like, well, I mean, I was hoping for that, but it's like it exceeded my expectations, I guess, and it's just like we've actually been
okay.
going at this for an hour, which is surprising. Didn't feel that long, but time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
It did, and what could be more fun than dealing with technical issues the whole time? I mean,
Oh
honestly.
yeah, don't remind me. But to step away from that, there are a couple more like housekeeping details before we wrap things up. Because like I said, it's been an interesting month. So I guess first up on that list, it's a short list, like two things. How you guys feel about stocks? Cause
Oh, I love them. I got into stocks this last year. I love it.
Yeah, because it's just been wild. Because so for those of you that don't know, there's a lot of eat the rich energy on social media because a bunch of people on Reddit got together, manipulated the stock market, like rich people do, and of course the rich people aren't happy about it, even though they've been telling us to invest our money for years, which I've just been saying this all week. It's like the poor people try to play the rich man's game, and the rich man wants to cry foul, but it doesn't work like that. And people are waking up to it, and it's restored a little bit of my faith in humanity. I'm not good with the stock market, despite having majored in math and economics, but you love to see it. Plus, investment requires capital that I don't have, so there's also that.
My brother's the stock person, so I leave most of it to him. I do understand the GameStop situation, and it is awesome. It restores your faith in humanity because a lot of these people would be getting an immediate boost if they sold their stuff right now.
Yeah,
And
but
the
then
the fact that they're holding is like, it kind of defies a lot of the stereotypes that the rich people have about the poor.
Oh,
And to say that, like, oh, they're temperamental, oh, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know
yeah,
how to
exactly,
spend their
because
money,
they
oh, they
want
get
to.
money, they spend it on beer and cigarettes, and like,
They
because
just
they're
want to be
idiots.
as like, oh, you don't spend your money properly. Why don't you invest your money? And then we invest our money, and then they want to be like, wait, that's illegal. Stop
Not
doing
like
that.
that.
Not like that.
the system's broken now. Oh crap.
And
Yeah,
then
no,
it's
I think
like
it's awesome.
the services that let you buy the stock see that, and then instead of letting people participate in this supposed free market, you can't see the air quotes, but they're there, and then they just want to shut everything down. It's like you're really bending the knee in favor of the people with money, really. And it's funny that a service called Robinhood ended up doing that. The irony, the delicious irony. I hope
You
they
know,
go. I hope they go under for that because they deserve to. And anyone else who wants to block people from buying stocks, because it's a wonderful thing. It's like sticking it to the rich is always a wonderful thing because they deserve it.
you know
No,
what's
no
actually
one should have that much money ever.
You know what's funny about this entire thing is that whenever I was watching MSNBC today, I was looking at like the entire situation. They replayed a clip that this one guy, he was a stockbroker. I don't know his name. I really didn't care to know. He was a whiny little baby, actually, and he went on saying, "Well, all of these people who we didn't expect to like invest in stock are investing in stock, and they shouldn't have this kind of money. They should just be like grateful that they're getting their government checks and sitting at home in their basement." I'm like, are you serious right now, sir?
Yeah, a lot of people seem to forget that the government's supposed to be servants to the people that put them in that position.
Exactly.
But
Yeah, I mean,
the best lie that the rich man is told, that the problem for so many poor people is other poor people.
yeah, my I'm very much a libertarian, and that was kind of like my old podcast. And so, like, whenever the government and their crony allies get hosed, I'm pretty much in paradise. So I've been
Yeah,
very much
like,
enjoying this.
you know,
Like,
Same here.
yeah,
screw the system.
yep.
Capitalism sucks. Our government sucks. There's no such thing as a good politician. All that jazz.
Oh, cheers! You speaking my language.
The only good politicians aren't really in politics. They're doing like stuff for charity work and everything, not really publicizing what they do.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that's exactly why I say that, because like I say there's no such thing as a good politician, and people want to say examples. It's like, no, it's fundamentally the same thing with the police. There are no good apples on that tree because politics is a dirty business. You basically have to sell your soul to take part in it.
so
Same-
Ariel, you're saying the only good public servants are serving the public?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
wow. That's,
Amazing how
whoa,
that works.
that's
It's so funny
weird.
too, because it's like the police were built on a broken system of trying to catch slaves. Like, of course, it's going to be a malfunctioned system that needs
And you
fixing and
and
rebooting.
you know who put that system in place? The government.
Exactly.
Oh my
So it
gosh.
goes
It's
back to
just
like
like
a rock swish repeat.
it's just people full it's just people sitting on their thrones just high off their power, and they would rather see the country that they're supposed to be managing burn to the ground before ever giving up that power. They would actually rather die, or in this case see the rest of us die.
Canada looks pretty good right
And
now.
that's funny because you only really lose a government position until A, your service is up, or if you don't have a time limit on your service, B, you croak.
Yep.
This is locker room talk for me.
Oh.
I mean, I love this. I mean, I, I hate it because I understand it's hard, right? Politics is hard with video games because people come from a diverse areas, backgrounds, and I believe that everybody's, while their final outlook might not be valid, what has gone into shaping their experience absolutely is valid. And so I don't want to invalidate anybody by saying, hey, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you suck, or you're a, you know, you come from this way of life where you keep looking at this, you suck. Like I try to understand where they came from. But
Mm,
ultimately, as far as just my personal worldview, like I can't look at the evidence that I've looked at and deny that politicians are out for themselves and their crony allies, and this is like 90% of what composes America. I mean, you look at
you're open to reason, which at the end of the day is like that's all you can ask for. Just like have an open mind. Don't be racist. Don't be phobic of any kind, be it homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic. Just like don't be an asshole. That's just the bare minimum people ask. It's the bare minimum that I would ask of anyone. Just like don't be a dick and keep an open mind.
This kind of goes into a topic that you want to talk about that I have a lot to say on, and you know
Oh,
it's coming.
you know what? Let's just switch topics. Cause like we all said, we're not all stockbrokers. We don't know how
no,
this
it's
works.
coming.
So
What's happening?
Listen,
a
how do you
certain
feel about
a certain influencer, we won't name names because I'm pretty sure I'd get in trouble for that. Recently had an interview, and it's like one of the questions on said interview was around the lines of, do you think it's your responsibility to like foster positive things in your community, or like call out people in your community and just like not make it a cesspool of hate? And he said, well, no, it's not his responsibility. It's up to like their parents or whatever. And it's just like people dragged him through the coals for that, and rightfully so, because I'm gonna be honest, I might get into a bit of a rant. If you create content of any form, you do have a responsibility to make sure that you're fostering positive things into people's lives, because you have an influence on people's lives. Like I have 5 viewers right now. It's like the things we said tonight could change those 5 people's lives, and why would you not want to change those people's lives for the better? Saying that it's
exactly?
not your responsibility is just, well, one, it's ignorant, and two, it shows just how much privilege you have, because a lot of people don't well, the fact that you can avoid responsibility like that says a lot, but that's a different topic in entirety. But it's just like, I just don't know how content creators should think of that. It's like, you've literally had kids go out here and commit bloody murder, and like on their manifestos, or as they're committing their act, they scream like sub to PewDiePie or some crap. It's like, if I heard that on the news, I'd be mortified. Like, I would be in some deep reflection saying, it's like, maybe I should probably look at my community and see what's going on, and maybe change some things so that things like that don't happen again. Because even as a joke, that's not something you should take lightly, ever. It's
It
like
comes back.
it's
Do we
like
have
people just like when it comes to content creator, you just fail to people just fail to realize that how much of an impression you can have. It's like you have bigger content creators like people literally worship you. Like yeah, you might see it as like you may have your quote unquote simps or you might joke about it, but people literally like look at you as like something larger than life, and they will make decisions based on those rather misguided thoughts, because like you should never put anyone on a pedestal. That's just how it is. Like don't worship people. It's just unrealistic,
Deep
because
mindset.
no one is beyond evil or good, but just like you have to keep like a close eye. And it's like not everyone shows you every little aspect about their life. You're not going to know every little aspect about people's lives for good reason, because it's none of your business. But still, it's like there is a responsibility when you create content to make sure that content doesn't end up breeding more hate, because that's how hate spreads. It spreads because people just allow their communities to just allow it to fester and grow, or be among individuals who are also filled with hate. The worst thing you can do to allow hate to grow is be silent. That's just how it is. Silence is the ultimate catalyst for hate, because if you don't try and change people's minds or like show people that it isn't okay, they're not going to see a problem when there clearly is one.
It's true.
I mean, so yeah, it's not enough to be passively not racist. We must be actively anti-racist. Now, I
Exactly.
understand people don't want to believe that they have a social responsibility. In fact, so to give some credit to the person who we're talking about, it was actually Henry David Thoreau who said, "You don't have a responsibility to fight against." Society, but you do have a responsibility to jump off of its shoulders, right? And so basically with what he was saying was that it's okay to just say, I'm not going to go with the tides anymore, and I'm not going to support this. I'm not necessarily leading the revolution, but I'm just going to be, you know, I'm not going to do a bad thing. Now, Thoreau, I mean, did time because he wouldn't pay his taxes because he didn't support the Mexican American Revolution. The dude obviously is a good person, but I think that we must understand like the critical. I want to be nuanced about this because I understand where people are coming from, right? When they say like, well, why
It's
should I? Isn't it enough for me to just be not racist? Well, here's why it
no.
isn't. Let's say you make a casserole and you got half of it left and you leave it out on the counter. Casserole's good, right? Everything's fine. You're just going to leave it out on the counter for a week. Okay. Is it enough that you made the casserole? Yeah. Did you make the casserole go bad? No. The casserole's going to be bad in a week because you left it out. You actually have to do a good thing to keep it good. When we look at throwing back on my theological background again, when we talk about good and evil, good is not just a lack of evil; it is actually doing good. It when and I'm not going to get too religious on everybody, but the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. It's not blessed are the peaceful; it's people who actually make peace, people who actually do something. So it's not enough to just say, you know what, I'm not going to be a racist. But that just maintains the status quo. And if we understand that we have a police force that is founded on systemic racism, that if we have laws in place that are extremely transphobic, that we have, policies in place that make it difficult for homosexual couples to adopt children, the status quo is not good enough. And you
Yeah,
actually
like
have to do something to help them out, because they will remain the minority so long as the majority refuses to hear their voices. So
yeah,
if
Exactly.
because
you are,
FYI, the status quo in itself is a political device, and if you fit into that status quo and you choose to be ignorant, you're part of the problem. But go on,
yeah, I
please.
mean, and I'm coming from you. I am a WASP. I am a white Anglo-Saxon. I'm a Christian, Protestant. I'm straight. I'm all of these things that would put me in the majority. But ultimately, minorities have contributed so much to my life that it would be empty without that. And here's the thing: it's not just that minorities are good, though they are. I mean, people are good. We like people, right? But it's more so that it's saying that people at their best contribute to my life the most. So if somebody is feeling repressed, they are not going to be as contributing towards my life as someone else. And this just goes through everything on a societal level. And I mean, obviously we've you guys cracked it open, so thank you, by the way, for cracking open the political talk. But like it is just so important that this becomes a cultural issue, and it's not a political issue. This is not something that your politicians are going to solve. I mean, we've had 2 presidents in a row pretty much say straight up racist things during the course of their careers. I mean, we got, racial jungle dude in office right now who is looking at a law that like basically
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Well, there's those audios issues coming back. Your mic cut out. He was on a roll too. It sucks. This is what we have to deal with. This is what I have to deal with. And now I just look stupid. I'm sorry. It was getting good, I know.
Wait, what?
But do you have any thoughts while he's getting his stuff fixed?
I just have thoughts on this dude who shall not be named who has blue hair. The fact
Is
of the
he
matter
still
is,
rocking the blue hair?
I think so. Last time I saw, but I'm not sure. I mean, like, unless he went on like a crazy, like, dying spree in order to hide his identity, but I'm not too sure about that. The thing is that I even talked about this in the Casual Nerd episode I did on Friday. This guy is known for just being a complete jerk. Like,
and having the most privileged takes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's because he doesn't realize his own privilege. That's the thing. Like, he says, "Oh, I'm not going to game with any females." I'm sorry.
Yeah, I still remember that.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm sorry. Does your wife have that much of a trust issue with you that she's not going to want you to have like a professional, coherent relationship, business partnership with a female streamer? Like, do you guys have that much battling trust issues? I'm sorry, but what is that?
And then statements like that just breed into the problem more. Because, like,
exactly.
Ladies in the gaming industry have it rough as is. And you have, like, one of the biggest names saying it's like, oh, I won't play with other women because, like, my marriage is on that much of a loose string, or whatever his reasoning is.
Yeah.
Like, that sort of stuff spreads. And it's a very contagious thing.
It is, especially for males who go towards that kind of ideology of thinking that, they have this higher than mighty than thou attitude towards things.
Yeah, like, the dark age thinking.
Exactly. Like, for example, when I was talking about this yesterday, I was bringing about the point that this entire thing, like, you have such a commitment to your community if you have those types of numbers. Like, anybody who has some sort of platform dreams of having those kinds of numbers. He's doing a disservice to his community by not at least bringing it up once if some, like, racist piece of shit comes onto his channel and is, like, saying just abhorrent things. Like, he should at least stop the stream and just be like explaining what's going on, why that's not cool, and then continue. Like, it's not
or just not support those individuals because it's not okay.
Exactly, or just like block the person. Even that's what I do during my streams. If I see any like racist crap or anything like that, or anything homophobic or transphobic, I block the person immediately.
Yeah, because just that stuff's just not okay. It really just isn't okay. Yeah. Like, he was, like Hodeman was saying earlier, like, it's not enough to just not be racist or homophobic or whatever. You have to actively be against it, because that's the only way the message gets across. Because people won't learn. I'm just convinced people don't learn nowadays unless there are active consequences against that sort of behavior. Just like with the Panera, and how our handling of it is absolutely abysmal. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
For a
just
different
the way,
time.
Like, it's or if it's like spoon fed to them, because people nowadays, especially like the younger generation, they do not want to do something that is outside of their comfort zone for the majority.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's got his mic issues fixed.
Am I back?
Okay, there it is.
Okay, what up? Yeah, like, I mean, that goes into the exact point that I'm talking about. Like, you don't have to be being anti-bacteria is just not the lack of adding bacteria. Bacteria is going to find, right? If racism exists, then it's like a parasite, right? It's going to spread. And we know bacteria exist. So like with food, we have to take precautions to make sure that it doesn't touch our stuff, right? The bacteria and parasites don't get in our food. So similarly, we have to take precautions that it doesn't get with our stuff. So one of the things that I noticed with the podcast that I was on, we only recently, like in the past year, and it's funny because one of our co-hosts is black, right? So we took for granted that we had nobody who was racist that would listen to the show, right? We just assumed. We were like, no way somebody would do it. And we just talked politics, and of course, I mean, social stuff came up, but we didn't really take like a really firm. Racism was always discouraged, but we never like spoke out about it. We never dedicated an episode to it.
Yeah,
And finally,
like
during this last year, we were like, dude, let me show, like, we showed some examples of like what systemic racism looks like and people getting pulled over that like had no business getting pulled over. And like a white person with a gun in the car talking to a cop versus a black person with a gun in the car talking to a cop. We're like, guys, this is what we're trying to talk about. And people went crazy. Like we could not believe how many racists like were around. And it kind of was an eye-opening thing to just be like, wow, like we really kicked a hornet's nest here by like the sheer number of them. Now, most of them are faceless. They're trolls. They got a million different accounts. They're,
yeah,
you know,
like
this is the Gamergate thing, right? It's the anonymity of the internet allowing you to be a jerk, you know, to people. But the thing is it's like, okay, so we know that's how they operate. Well, how are we going to respond? We can't possibly stop everyone from making a fake account or a sock account. So let's like, don't even try. What we're going to do is we're going to suffocate their voices by preaching the news that racism is an awful thing and equality is awesome. And so we are going to become all about equality. This show is all about, you know, video game industry. It's not just, and I think this is even the next step after being anti-racist. It's being pro-equality. It's being pro-positivity. It's being pro-inclusiveness and pro-diversity. It's saying, I want these voices on my team because their perspectives make my final result better. We talked at the very beginning of this show about how if you have a limited view on something, it might have been on the show that got cut off, but basically saying that if we have only our viewpoint on the show, if you're writing for, oh yeah, this is what we were talking about. If you're a Christian and you're writing for an atheist, you might not do a great job if your only experience with it has been negative, right? And so this is why you get a diverse team to write about it when it's like, hey, I have a character here who's got like Christian leanings and I'm not a Christian. Could you mind helping this out? Oh, sure. You know, something we notice all the time when you write for men or women, right? I am very bad at writing dialogue for a woman. It just, I am, right? And it's not because I hate women. I haven't had that experience. I'm not good at it.
it's like
you know?
experience kind of helps, but
Right.
it's like, it's just
So-
like you were saying, it's just you gotta, aside from being against racism, you also have to be pro for, you know, equality and all that stuff. And then the final step is just putting those words or promises into action, which we still have a long way to go with that. But I think it's getting better slowly, very slowly, but surely.
I think absolutely. Yeah. I think there are times that I mean, it's hard to say. You look at what Gamergate happened and we're leaking people's addresses simply because they said, you know, maybe less women in bikinis in video games.
Yeah,
would be okay.
that was,
I mean,
that was
that's
a whole
dark.
mess. That was a whole mess. I don't even remember much about Gamergate, but it was not a fun time.
But you're looking at now, and I think some of the scandals, in fact, specifically with reviewing in this last year, will make the industry better because people are beginning to demand honest reviews, and they don't want to see these embargoes, and they don't like to see these things. And we're saying like, okay, we need to keep that up. We need to keep doing it. We're certainly not there, but at least we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, the most thing I can take about the absolute crap fest that was last year is that I feel like a lot of people's eyes have been opened, and especially with this recent stock market stuff, it's like people are very much awakening to a lot of the bull crap that permeates our lives, meaning just like, you know, the veil is being lifted, like the matrix is crumbling before our eyes, and that's a good thing, because then people can actually wise up and, like, you know, rise above it. But it's like, it just takes a lot of work to weed out the old systems, because, like, especially in this country, I can't speak for any other countries, but just like, we got a lot of work to do. I think the work's being done, maybe not at the best pace, but it's like things are changing, or I like to think things are changing for the better.
We'll never, I don't think we'll ever not have work to do.
Oh yeah, we know,
I,
but
I don't think evil ever goes away, but I think this is kind of my point. When illustrated in a game like, say, like a roguelike game like Hades, right? So you got Hades, that it's the process that you enjoy. So you need to enjoy the process of diversity and the process of equality. It's not something that you achieve equality and you never have to worry about it ever again. It's
yeah,
never going to be there. And this isn't to say that we can't even have a point where people are equitable, but this is to say that, like, the voice calling for something to be unequal is always going to exist, and we always need to keep that down. It's easier to take a puzzle apart than it is to put it together. So it should be no surprise that's nature, right? To the destructive capabilities of nature, that we will always be fighting against this nature. And it's the good fight. It's the good fight. I have loved my time, and as I've learned, and of course coming from my as I've disclosed my very privileged background and all the privileged my majority things about me, that I've come to realize that I actually enjoy talking about subjects like this, because it's not saying, hey, I didn't say anything about racism. It's not saying racists get out. It's saying, hey, non-racists come in. It's saying, hey, you people there that are feeling down, that are feeling kicked out, I want to set out the welcome mat for you. Come on in, because you're welcome here. And it's a really healing thing, and it makes for a really cool community. Like, the people in my social media are not as toxic as what some other people deal with. Now, I'm a lot less public than I think either of you.
I'm not
But
that public either, but I'm glad with the circle I have personally. They're a bunch of good people.
yeah, and
I'm still meeting good people, which is a good thing.
right.
Yeah.
You'll never be able to stop weeding your garden, but you will be reaping the fruits. And I think I care so much more about the fruits that I'm getting than about the weeds that I'm pulling out. I think we spend a disproportionate amount of time sometimes being angry about the weeds that are cropping up. We should be angry about them, and we should point them out. And I think that I don't disagree with anything you've said. I think this particular influencer needs to. I don't. I guess I can't say what he needs to, but people listening to him need to stop listening to him and tuning in and feeding him.
Or
That's
maybe,
that.
or he needs a PR team very badly.
Well,
This one is just not very well versed because he has a lot of yes people.
Yeah, that's the thing about having circles, is that, like, you do have to check people in your circles, because, like, if you have a circle of people who just agree with anything you do, no matter how heinous or misguided it is, that's a problem. That's just as bad as, like, people in a circle that actively hate you. Like, you have to find a good balance. But yeah, I think we can all agree that his specific take, among many others, was very wrong. Because it's like I said at the start, if you create content in any way, shape, or fashion, you will have an influence on anyone's life who views said content being good or bad. And it's like, you should want that influence you have to be positive, because then, like we were saying, that sort of stuff spreads. And why would you not want the good stuff to spread and want the bad stuff to spread, unless you profit off of it, because some people do, sadly. But hate garners views. That's a whole different problem. People love that drama and stuff. Certain other trash individuals profit off it, but we won't name names here. But
Karma will just get them in its own time.
yeah, sometimes it takes a while, but it tends to happen. At least from what I've noticed, it tends to happen. Better late than never, I guess.
Ariel, I feel like you had a lot to say. You said you had a lot to say about this influencer, and I feel like I dominated all the time. I want to make
No,
sure that you get your words in.
During the time that your audio kind of cut out, I said a lot
Yeah,
of it. I don't know.
she said
I
her
said.
piece when you were getting your stuff sorted out, because
Okay.
I don't like dead
Yeah.
air. It just bothers me.
I did hear it. I just wanted to make sure that you
Oh
said.
yeah, no, because with this guy, like I said, I covered what happened with him on an episode of the Casual Nerd I did yesterday. So for me, I feel like if I say any more, I'm gonna be going into grounds for, okay, we're gonna file a cease and desist on her right now.
Yeah, it's like I'm.
So
It's
it's
like I
like, yeah, I
know.
have to be careful.
We're not strangers to spicy topics here, but there are rules we need to comply. Cause like I don't need my channel going under. I'd prefer to
Like,
keep this.
yeah,
So
But
he's the hedge fund, and we're the GameSpot right now.
yeah. It's
yeah,
just, to be honest, like, this isn't me,
I don't need
like,
a Robin Hood on me.
like this isn't
The
me, like,
irony of that, the irony of that statement.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Like,
I
to
am
be honest
nowhere
with you,
near rich.
yeah, like, to be honest with you guys right now, like, this isn't me, like, being all like, oh, look at my numbers or anything like that, because I can't stand that shit. But I have over 2,000 subscribers, okay? I'm not about to call someone out on BS unless I absolutely have to, especially on someone else's podcast.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's he who shall not be named. But you guys should know who it is. I'd hope, and even if you don't, it's not hard to find. It really isn't.
It, it's different because it's like you can't directly name people on Twitch, but you can on YouTube, and I love that.
Yeah, Twitch has a myriad of problems, that being one of them. But
Yeah.
maybe one day they'll get their crap together. I doubt it, but you gotta hope.
Well,
It's not like any streaming service is good. They all suck. It's just a matter of picking your poison. YouTube has its own problems, and then there's Facebook. Who streams on Facebook? Like, why?
my cousin, who is 60.
Oh, well, I
I'm
guess
just
that's
joking.
all there. I was about to say, I guess that's all there needs to be said. I
I
literally only have a Facebook for Messenger. That's it.
I I've streamed on there before when I was playing NBA 2K, and
How was it?
reason being is because I got nobody on Twitch, and so I just hopped on over to Facebook Live, and I got like 50 people. So like it was really more just a matter of the viewership, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. I've jumped ship off Twitch once for like 2 weeks back when they were. I forget what it was for. I just didn't feel comfortable using the site anymore. But I mean, they made. Actually, no. I remember what it was for. It was for against. It was all those sexual assault allegations, and how they weren't handling all that well. And then 2 weeks later, they banned a bunch of people. It was like, okay, you did a slight good, so I guess I'll come back. It's all where you find the viewership, or where you enjoy, or what sucks the least, because they all have their problems.
It's true.
Discord, if you could make a streaming service and like actually get Twitch to maybe get their shit together, I'd love that. Just to, just a thought. You already got screen share. It's progress. But yeah, other than that, it's just like I feel like the conversation today was fruitful. Did you guys have any other closing thoughts you want to get off your chest?
Treat people the way you want to be treated. I know it's so cliche, but everything that's going on right now, it's like the world is slowly crumbling and revealing things that the ups really don't like and appreciate it, and I love it. So yeah, everybody keep testing the norms. Live your best life during this pandemic, this panny. Just live your best life.
The
Seriously,
panorama.
panorama.
Yeah, I mean, I second all that. Be excellent to each other. I think that's different than just not being mean. I think being excellent to somebody is really cool and really makes people's day. I think you'd be surprised how many people out there that you think like, oh, this guy doesn't need me hitting up in their inbox telling me I appreciated the article, or I appreciated their stream, or their content, or their article. Like, we tell ourselves that they must be getting tons of positive reinforcement. I can assure you they're not. And even
Yeah,
if they
no,
never
even
respond, even if they do never see it and they actually got too much, what's the harm? You tried to do too much good. You tried to reach out to be too nice most of the time. And I was shocked that I got my job, and really most of it was, and I was unqualified. My history wasn't in it, but I did have a talent for writing. It's not that I was unable to perform the job, but I just didn't have the history that is normally required for the job. But one of the reasons I got is just because I built these interactions by being like, hey man, I saw your article today. I really enjoyed this. I really like the part where you said this. I saw your video today. I saw your stream today. I really like the part where you were talking about this, or where you mentioned this mechanic. Like it makes people's day. Like just being excellent to people, there's not enough positivity in the universe. We spend so much time looking for weeds, and there's a lot of weeds, but just take some time and enjoy the fruits and let people know that you appreciate like what they've done, what they've become.
Yeah, we kind of had a half-hour conversation of that. It's just like, you never know what'll make people's days, and I speak from experience, and it's usually the smallest things that'll put the biggest smiles on people's faces. But like, yeah,
Exactly.
like we were saying, don't be a dick, respect people, be gay, do crime, all that lovely stuff. And
And then I do want to just real quickly conclude with the review talk, and that's that I really it's important when you view reviews, be open-minded, understand it's not there for your confirmation bias, like what
Yes.
to confirm what you thought about the game or what you love the most. Be open-minded, take it in. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to say like, man, I really felt that um, Godfall, I really liked all the gold particle effects, and I really thought that was neat. So the fact that you said it's too much, okay, that's a difference of opinion, and there's no need to go fighting each other about it. It's just a difference of opinion. There are times where you can say I feel lied to, and then it's important to take like maybe a moral stand. But more often than not, it's just different people with different experiences having different things. And like if that reviewer is not for you, the very best thing you can do is just stop following them, not talk
constructive
to them,
criticism.
or construct them. But if you really just truly distaste like this person's taste in games, or if they steered you wrong, here's the thing: you comment on their stuff, algorithms send their stuff up that much higher. You angry react something, oh, look at where they're going. You retweet it and be like, look how stupid this guy is. That guy is that you dislike is going to get that much more exposure. So don't
Thank
waste
you.
your time with negativity. Like if you really truly dislike and you feel lied to, just cut them off, block them, be done with them, wipe your hands of it, say, hey, I don't trust that reviewer, and they're not for me. And this is the reviewer that I trust. That's all I got.
I
Thank
felt
you.
that on a spiritual level because this is just so true. Like, honestly, I can't tell you how many times of where, like, and this isn't a pity party comment, it's just facts of where I won't get any, like, there will be someone who will tell me that, for example, oh, the review that you did today, kind of made me not want to get the game because you made it sound too smart. And I was like, I don't know
You made
exactly how
it
to do
sound
that.
too smart.
I
I
was like, "Did you want to play a stupid game? I'm not sure where you're going with this,
I
sir."
I wouldn't even know how to rebuttal to that because like, huh? So
Because the person like DM'd me and I didn't see it because it was in my spam folder, and I was just like, "Oh, okay, delete."
it's like if the review was too smart for me, I'm not buying this game. It's like okay, sure.
It was just so funny. I had to put that out there because it's like there are comments, and then sometimes like there will be comments that will fall in between like the neutral zone of where like, oh, this is this, but this is this.
Like
But then there are
passive
some
aggressive.
exactly, yeah. But then there are some comments. I just have to bring this up because this is just like something about like the commenters and the people who comment. But then there's some comments that I see that are so left field that I'm like, I don't exactly know how to react to this right now.
Yeah, I imagine it's just like I don't know. Maybe I'll experience that one day if I ever get my YouTube stuff off the ground. Who knows? But yeah, I guess we can call it a night from that. So thank you two for joining me. I enjoyed this greatly. I hope you guys had fun too, and I hope anyone watching had fun as well. Check their stuff out. They're wonderful people, and like I said, I enjoyed the time today.
Me too, man. Thanks for having me on.
It was really
Likewise.
great conversation.
Yeah, it was good. And like I said, I do this every month on my channel, typically towards the end of the month. So, be on the lookout for that. If you enjoyed yourself, you can follow. You can keep up with my social media. And, well, actually, before I get off and send you to someone else, I have two slightly major announcements. So, one of my resolutions or one of my little goals for this year is to put this podcast on a service. So I'm going to be doing better with that. I'll be archiving this to my YouTube, and I'm also going to try and put this on Anchor for you to listen in your spare time. If you want to, I'd appreciate it. It'd be great. And second housekeeping thing is starting Monday is going to be a little event on my channel called February 2021 edition. So For the entirety of February, I'll be playing nothing but rare or rareware titles, depending on how you spin it or wherever they came out. It's a fun time. You can check it out, see some good games, be either praising the games to high heaven or tearing them apart to the ground. And then, I don't know, you can encourage me to play some other games. And by encourage, I mean give me money or channel points. I have it set up too. I'll never ask people to just straight up give me money. But yeah, it should be a fun time. We'll be playing my favorite game to kick off the festivities, the same as last year. And I got a list of other games to get through as well. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It means the world to me. Thank you to my guests. Please check out their stuff. And aside from that, let me shoot you over to someone else.